Recording in progress.
Well, if you would turn off those.
Yeah, what are the you? Yeah, what are you?
Turn it all the way down.
So there's no, because then there's no Zoom.
That's it. No, you're on Zoom. That's good.
But you're the meeting.
That's
Oh,
okay.
yeah, yeah, those are the packets. Sorry. Thank you. I'll bring that up. Thank you. Okay, well, let's try that again. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Good evening. My name is Megan Ryan. I'm the chairperson for the Manila Community Services Board of Directors. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting for Tuesday, January 16th, 2024, and it is 6:31 p.m. This meeting is being held in person. We're all here at the Manila Community Center, Room A, and it is also available on Zoom. And it looks like we have a couple of people on Zoom this evening. First, we'll start with a roll call to determine the quorum. And please say your name and your present.
Danielle Nunes, present.
Present.
John Broderick, president.
Thank you. And we have one absent member this evening, but we do have a quorum with 4 of 5 members present. Are there any agenda modifications? Seeing none from staff, thank you. But I will point out, we do have some agendas and packets up here on the table. If anyone needs one, let us know, and we'll get one over to you. Item 3 is public input, petitions, and announcements. This is the part of the agenda when the public is invited to make announcements or provide other information to the board on matters that are not on the agenda. The board will impose a limit of 3 minutes for these individual presentations. And by law, the board cannot take action on the items that are brought up during this time. Is there anyone here who would like to make a comment on an item not on the agenda? Okay, go
Do
ahead.
I need to do it up here or does it matter?
Wherever-
From here?
Yeah,
Hi,
sure.
everybody.
Yep.
I'm just making a quick announcement with I'm Carol Vandermeer with my graduated communication hat on that we've been working on. Beautifying a Peninsula beautification grant. So there's some new additions. Hopefully some people have seen the sculpture over at the Manila Park. There's a cool seal sculpture. We're working on putting in a new sign for the Manila Park that disappeared many years ago, and a number of other improvements. And so I just want to keep encouraging people who want to be added to our Peninsula Community Collaborative email list and be involved and get a little more centrally involved in that. You let me know, or I'm sure anyone on the staff or the board could help hook you up with that. So that's it. Just a quick gift.
Great. Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anyone else here who'd like to make a comment on an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, and I do not see anyone in Zoom with their hand raised, so I will close public comments for items not on the agenda and move on to the business item for this evening. The business item for this evening is Resolution 2401, supporting law enforcement and social services and efforts addressing encampments in the Manila Dunes recreation area. I'll go to Chris for a staff report from the general manager.
Thank you. As you've all heard, we've been told we found a deceased body in the dunes last week or so, and Mike Wilson contacted me and asked for a policy position from the board of directors to remove any ambiguity about how the community and the district feels about having encampments in the dunes. So the chair and I authored this resolution to kind of spell out how many acres we have and what we're dealing with, and there's a map and some of our previous interactions with law enforcement and the campers themselves. So I think tonight the board would pass this and it would kind of solidify a position for how we want to move forward treating this. And I think the sheriff and Mike Wilson would like to speak, and I'll hand Mike the floor.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Well, first I want to thank the board. I know that you weren't planning on having a meeting this month, and so I just really want to thank you for coming together for this on short notice. And you know, under these circumstances. So thank you. I just big thank yous there. My name is Mike Wilson. I am a third district supervisor for this district, and I have for many years been a part of efforts to deal with and address issues around homelessness and other things, not just in the dunes, but throughout Manila. And as you know, some things are ongoing, and this particular issue has been getting, I would say, more entrenched over time, especially on the lands that CSD has in this current time. So there has been, I have received many complaints from folks traveling through and hiking through these public properties about issues around feeling unsafe and also just issues around the fire dangers, as well as dogs and other things. And so we've had this ongoing concern. And so really we're at a place, I think, we've had a death in this space, that it's time that we have some togetherness moving forward, the county and CSD and other agencies, to see what we can do to make that
I hate, no.
public. You got that? So that's why I asked this to come together. I was hopeful, and I was glad that honestly that you were available to have a meeting just on this issue and not, you know, have it at another time. I was grateful to Chris to help me pull this together, and I'm hoping that we can, with this resolution, we can just really say, like, this community is ready to work together to address it and move on. So that's really the crux of this. I just want to appreciate everybody being here.
Here. Anyone from the sheriff's office like to say something at this time?
Good afternoon or evening now. My name is Brian Quinnell. I'm the captain with the sheriff's office. Again, I want to thank you guys for putting this meeting together and again providing us the direction that you're looking for and moving forward with the encampments in the dunes. And thank you to Supervisor Wilson for facilitating this as well. It's really important that we have these public collaborations. The sheriff's office, we can't do this alone. So we need the public's input, we need the help from the community, and we need direction. As the stewards of the land, we need to know what direction you want us to move in. Unfortunately, this is a common issue for us. And we do have a strategy in place that we've used, we've been successful with in the past. I have Sergeant Tony Gomes here and Deputy Raleigh Willoughby. Sergeant Gomes is our special services sergeant. He's in charge of all of those things that are kind of outside the norm of regular patrol, and Deputy Willoughby is our off-highway vehicle deputy sheriff. So they're going to be assigned to this project, and they'll be the ones collaborating with DHHS, with MIST, other county services to fix, or at least attempt to fix the issue that we're having out here. We don't want to move them from one piece of property to another just to be over there in another month or two. So the idea is to come up with a long-term solution, but we also need to there also need to be consequences for those who don't fall in line with the direction being provided. So that's kind of where we're at. We're in the beginning stages of this. I received an email earlier today identifying some camp locations, and then my staff is going to get after it, and we're going to start developing a plan and making those collaborative steps with the other county agencies and state agencies to come in and help with that kind of holistic approach to dealing with the problems that are out there.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Go ahead.
I just wanted to note, we also have DHHS here, Department of Health and Human Services Director Connie Beck is here as well. So if there's questions about this program or any of those other services that the county can provide,
Great, thank you and welcome.
Thanks.
Glad you have a seat. Did you have anything generally you'd like to say at this time?
No, I'm here to listen and just make sure that law enforcement and others know that we're available whenever you guys are ready.
Great, thank you very much. At this time, do any of the board members have any questions for Chris or county staff? Go jump right in.
Yes, well, I guess first of all, for Connie, I would be curious, like. What options are available for people with pets? Because I know that that is something that with like all the shelters and short-term housing opportunities for people, there's restrictions on pets, and I feel like that might be a part of what we're up against because most of the people out here have animals. So I'm just curious if you know what it looks like for those people, or part of the process of getting them housed is going to involve separating them from the bedroom, how that works. And then I guess I'll start there.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be good and give an opportunity for you to respond. Yeah.
Now, laws are changing around, pets. And so people are able to take their pets to a lot of the housing first properties. We work with a lot of landlords that, actually take pets, amongst, many other things that, some of our clients deal with, so. There are other opportunities for people with pets.
Okay, so it shouldn't be that shouldn't be an excuse. There should be
That,
housing available.
that should not be an excuse. There's housing issues everywhere. I think we're all aware that, there's a lack of housing in general. But we do have the ability to help people get housed if they're ready.
I'm curious. I guess one more question for you, sorry. There's one individual out there who seems to maybe have, I don't know who that is, but is very vocally saying curse words and things really loud and seems to get really set off. And I've actually met the guy and he was really chill with me. But it was very scary the way he was shouting and stuff, and I hear him out there pretty regularly. I'm wondering if someone like that, like, I guess the challenge is finding a replacement for someone like that, where, like, what do you do with a person that has that condition? Like, if they were in Eureka, they probably got driven out of Eureka because it was, so just trying to figure out like where we can get these people that is a good fit.
A lot of times, like, an apartment wouldn't work for them, right? Or a setting with other people wouldn't work for them because of them, whatever it is that they do. In that instance, we might try to find a location that they can be alone or close to it.
So there should be some possibilities for people like that.
We do house a lot of folks that have different things, and it works.
So
We have what's called permanent supportive housing for folks that have that kind of issue, and those houses are made just for folks. Like, we have housing that's individual housing, so an individual like that wouldn't have to stay with others.
that's great. So
That doesn't mean that that person's gonna want to go to housing, right?
and if they don't, I guess that's the big question. That kind of leads to the sheriff's office is like, I'm wondering what this process looks like. And there was touched upon like consequences and things like that, like, you can connect people with social services and then you can tell them they're illegally camping and then you can tell them they have 30 days to get off of the property or whatever it is. But what is the whole process? Because I mean, at the end of 30 days, if they don't leave, I don't imagine you're out there handcuffing people and dragging them out of the dunes. I don't see that. I don't, that I would.
So ideally, voluntarily, they either seek housing through the HHS or through their own means, and they move along. They're issued warnings multiple times before we take any type of enforcement action. And typically, the first enforcement action we will take is issuing a citation. Talking about a misdemeanor. So typically, we're not going to take people to jail for that. That being said, if there are other crimes associated with that, whether it be narcotics related offenses or assault on our staff, then they end up going to jail. Like I said, we've done this strategy before. throughout the county. We've been successful. Very few people dig their heels in and say, I'm not leaving. Most people either want to find some type of regular housing, or they want to move on to where they don't create an issue for the community that they're in. And then that way we're not getting called, because if we don't get called, we don't know where they're at, and we don't have to do it. So, a couple of the successful places that we've done this before in Southern Humboldt, 3rd Main Street in Fortuna. We dealt with the encampments further down on the Arkley property before. So we have a strategy, and back when I was doing Sergeant Gomes's job, I did the same thing for 3rd and Main. We identified 28 different encampments. Out of those 28, I think we ended up arresting one person just because they refused to go along with the program.
So I guess just so I understand clearly, because I know that we've been in contact with the sheriff's office for years over this issue and specific encampments. And I personally called the sheriff's office and animal control multiple times, but I'm just curious, like if this, finding this body is changing the approach, if there's a different, like why we should expect different results. Sounds like you have successfully, and personally, for the people who are that nobody knows are out there, I don't have a personal problem with that. If there's not trash anywhere and nobody knows you're out there. But when you have people with dogs that are running up on people and barking, and when you have people who are when you have bodies shot, So I'm just curious, like, what's the difference between the approach from now forward versus the approach leading up?
So the difference is that the community service district is taking a stand and saying, we no longer want people staying on our property. So the community services district is providing that direction to us. And I understand what you're saying is that, well, if that guy's not creating a problem, then we can kind of ignore him.
Well, I'm not saying that.
We can't do it that way.
No.
It's all or nothing.
Yeah.
So either we're gonna move everybody off the property, and we're gonna do it again, as holistically as possible and providing as many services as possible, or we're just gonna continue to kind of deal with the issues as they come up. And it was my understanding that that's what this meeting was about, was to set that goal moving forward, is that the community services district is gonna kind of, so to speak, put their foot down and say, we want the sheriff's office to enforce the trespassing laws, the camping laws, and everything else on this tract of land owned by the community services district. That's what's the triggering mechanism for us, and that's what is creating the different response, as opposed to just a call for service where you call up and say, hey, I saw a loose dog. That triggers a different type of response versus this is a much bigger problem, and we need a long-term solution to it.
Yeah, okay. I would just say for the record that we have definitely not endorsed the idea of people camping up there. And that has been something we haven't wanted to tolerate pretty much ever. But do you have any sort of like timeline for this sort of proceedings? Like when we could check in and feel like there's going to be meaningful results?
So for me, what I would like to do tonight is establish a point of contact for your board that Sergeant Gomes can work with in establishing those guidelines. Unfortunately, Sergeant Gomes is in charge of our search and rescue. And now it's not a good time of year to take on a new project because of that. That being said, we have to prioritize certain things above this, but this is going to be in his queue of projects to be working on. The timeline depends on the collaboration between DHHS, MISS, and the other units that will be involved, and how quickly we can make it work. In a perfect world, I would say at a minimum 3 months, but more than likely, I would say to be fair, I would say 6 months. But I like to under promise and over deliver. So I would say 6 months on the very long end.
Yeah, Sequoia, if I may. So I just want to emphasize in here. So there, as you may know, there's properties with issues not dissimilar to this kind of all over the place. And when neighbors are having issues or the public's having issues with those properties, it's really important in order to help move some of those issues forward to resolution, that the property owner needs to state very clearly that they have trespassers and that they are and that they want them not to have trespassing on their property anymore, for the sheriff to be able to take action, or any of our agencies. It's actually pretty important. So that's really what's being, from my perspective, in order for us as the county to work with the district as the landowner to move forward on some of these things. What we're asking for is just really an affirmation that this is a direction that you want to go, not a sort of passive perspective of, well, we don't like it. And so that's really the threshold we're trying to get across here, so that we feel like, so that the other agencies feel like they have direction to assist the landowner, which is you guys, in moving forward. So that was
Yeah,
Thank you.
I guess the reason that I was pushing on that point is because about a year ago, I was out there with one of our former board members posting notices on like quite a few of the encampments, very clearly stating that this is an illegal activity that the district does not support. So we have given that notice. On the other hand, I do feel very mixed about this issue, because I've worked very hard to try to get micro house village created for houseless individuals, and I came up against the bureaucracy and the challenges and the red tape and all that, and it was years of volunteering effort, no fruits to that effort really. We got 2 units at St. Vincent. So I understand that, that you go out and get people to move out, and then they end up on Friends of the Dunes property, or they end up in Eureka and some area over there. So it's just that's why I have these thoughts like, okay, is there actual viable places for people? Is there actually going to be follow through with connecting people services and getting them out? And then if they don't, I don't know what the answer is. I certainly don't want to see people being drug out in handcuffs, but at the same time, we don't want to see dead bodies. So that's why I think that's why we're having this meeting. So I hope people have better questions and ideas that can help get clarity on all that. But I feel like you guys have more or less addressed my concerns. So thank you.
Did you have any additional questions? No, Danielle.
Did the body or the death have to do with a specific encampment, and has that been addressed? Time.
The body was located in an encampment, and the decedent was the occupant of that encampment.
Well, let's see. My questions about the strategy. I mean, I think you touched on some of that, and also like looking into the consequences. I do want to bring up, and I'm really looking for information to any of the supporting agencies, but there is a U.S. Supreme Court decision, that's Martin versus Boise, that was from 2018, upheld in 2019 and 2022. And it ruled that cruel and unusual punishment to criminalize camping on public property when the people in question have nowhere else they can legally sleep. And obviously rising rates of unsheltered homelessness have spiked, especially since the pandemic. I know that's drove, other local politicians to pass public camping prohibition, but cities have been subject to federal lawsuits after passing these because they failed to provide adequate alternate shelter options for the residents when they were about to sweep from their encampments. So we do it for health and safety reasons. We do it for the well-being of the encampments, people. So I'm wondering, what does that look like for us in the timeline and in the offerings that we are going to be giving these people? I mean, where to me that seems like we may be in conflict if we don't have it addressed exactly where these houses or where these alternative placements are and what that looks like.
So that Ninth Circuit decision out of Boise, we're well aware of. We've worked within those parameters quite a bit. And that's why this isn't an overnight process. This isn't, we go out tomorrow, we identify who the people are, we tell them you've got 2 days to get out of here, and we come back the next day. And if they don't leave, we take them to jail. We're beyond that point now. So for us, again, the goal is compliance and connecting them with the services that are available. And the very last component of what we do is the enforcement action. And again, it's typically just going to be a citation. But that's why it takes so long, because we have to do the documentation to show that we're offering the services to be in compliance with the Boise decision, and to ensure we're not violating their constitutional rights with some cruel or unusual punishment by moving too quickly and not connecting them with the services that are available in the county to them. And it only comes down to when they refuse all of those things. And that's why it kind of takes so long, because we have to do that documentation to show we went out there, we've identified these people, we warned them. We posted the camps, no trespassing, you're breaking the law. And then we go back again with our partners through DHHS and MIST and everybody else. And we say, these are the services that we have available to you. Which ones do you need? And we document that. Then we go back again and say, okay, well, last time we were here, you said you needed help finding an apartment. What steps, affirmative steps have you taken to make that happen? And then again, do that documentation. So it's a process to move them along the road. And they're constantly seeing a law enforcement presence, so they know this isn't one of those things where we're gonna show up, make a threat, and then never come back again and not have that followed.
Do you have any points to touch on as far as the amount of support or housing that we have currently in the county or in the city to?
I would just say that there are shelters available. It might not be the shelters that folks would be attracted to. And maybe they can't take their pets there, but there are beds available. And that's kind of how folks get moved around and it's okay. We do have some different engagement strategies, though. We have folks that work with our homeless population pretty regular. And we do get them to engage and trust, and sometimes it can take months or more to get people to trust enough to move on to another location. We had someone out on I think closer towards Samoa, right?
Yeah, and the trailer by Snow, you guys are probably familiar with that spot.
For a really long time, and it took, I don't know, more than a year to actually convince the guy that it was time to go, but I think a lot of the folks that, and do we know how many people are in the encampments? Do we know?
There's at least 10 encampments.
And one or two people or multiple people in the encampment?
Right, between 1 and 2, I would say per encampment is what I.
Okay.
Maybe there's one that might be.
Yeah,
Right,
so
to buy a dog ranch. And
it
that
changes quite a bit.
Okay. In my experience, a lot of the folks that live out here in the dunes live out here for a reason, because they don't want to be bothered by law enforcement or others. A lot of folks only have SSI to live on or less. And so they don't want to spend the little amount of money that they get every month to pay for housing. So it's complicated. And it's a process.
And does the strategy and process include of once the occupant agrees to vacate, there's a cleanup? Is that part of your role as well, or what other agencies, or is it something that would fall on us?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can take on that part.
Okay.
And again, that's part of the timing too, right? Is that we want to time when the camps are vacated, that they immediately get cleaned up and the infrastructure is removed. That way you take away that magnet for somebody else to come in and set up camp in that abandoned area.
Wow.
Thank you. I have questions or comments on the writing or the words, in the resolution, but I'd like to hear what the public has to say as well.
Yeah, thank you. When you get to that part of when we deliberate after public comment. Any questions? No, that are really great for you. Okay, great. Next we'll move on to public comment on this item. If you would like to make public comment, if you're in the room or on Zoom, please raise your hand. And I think, and for public comment, will be limited to 3 minutes per person to speak on this item. We will give you a warning at 30 seconds. So when your time is running out, sometimes it goes very fast. with that said, I'll start with the people who are in the room and then I'll go to Zoom and perhaps it's orderly just to go by rows. Should a lot of people want to speak tonight. So if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. Okay, great, go ahead.
Sure, I guess I'll stand, but.
Sure, whatever you feel comfortable.
I live at the end of Peninsula here, and so I kind of am the eyes, I guess, for that part of the street. But some key points I'd like to bring up would be, we used to use the dunes all the time. It's part of the reason we moved here. At the point we're at now, my wife does not feel comfortable walking down there alone, nor would we send our kids there. Essentially, key things would be dogs, rather big dogs, oftentimes. Sometimes not leashed, sometimes in camps, left alone to bark at you and your dog or your folks. But other than that, the things I've seen over time, I tend to walk my dogs really early in the morning. So I used to walk the dunes from 5 a.m. to 6. So I can attest that there's a lot of traffic that comes back to the dunes at that time of day. And hear things like chainsaws, typically in stormy weather, I'll hear a lot of chainsaw activity. And every once in a while we do hear gunshots out there. But just what I see and what I hear, I'll make it brief, but I certainly would like to see these folks have a meaningful transition, a safe transition. I do work with Open Door as well, and part of our teams may be instrumental at some level, especially the mobile medical part that we have, but it's really nice that we're having this meeting so we can all at least talk about it, look at options, because safety is my main thing. I think we have a wonderful resource and it'd be great to be able to use it feeling safe out there. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else in the first row like to speak? I don't think I saw anyone else, no pressure to do so. Just want to make sure you have the opportunity to be heard. Anyone in the second row? Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Cammie and I'll keep it short. A lot of my feelings are very similar to Ray's. I live down at the same end of the street that Ray does. I've lived in Manila about 15 years on this street. And I used to walk and run in the dunes on my own a lot, sometimes with our family dog. And these days I actually don't really feel safe doing so. I mean, I don't think I'm going to be killed, but there are enough loose dogs that sometimes bark aggressively that doesn't feel good to me. So to me, it's quite sad. One of the things I love most about Manila is the access to the outdoors. And I'm kind of sad to lose the access for myself and the neighbors that have shared with me. They feel similarly. I also think there's a lot of environmental degradation that's happening and it's unfortunate. I worry a little bit about fire danger. I actually lost my homeowner's insurance when I first got it because of the woods behind our house. I think that decision was made just from like satellite imagery. But I know there are campfires in the dunes, and so I think that's a safety concern for people who have homes there. And I also just want to thank the Sheriff's Office and Ginger with the Neighborhood Watch. And all the stakeholders. It sounds like this is a day where a lot of people are coming together, and I really would like people who are out there to have access to services and kind of an appropriate next step.
Thank you very much.
So through the chair,
Yes.
I was reading this and not introducing Ginger Campbell. So I'll, it was so important. So I just want to say she is an immense resource for your community, every community that she touches. And she's done wonderful things here and in helping move some properties forward. And so with that, I just want to make sure that she gets all the credit she deserves. Amazing.
You have my vote.
Go ahead.
You really have to dig for those votes. Anyways, I just want to say something about the dogs. I asked Captain, who's my boss, to look up all the calls to animal control in the last 6 months for aggressive dogs out on the dunes. How many do you think? Not enough. 10 calls in 6 months. And 2 of those were properties in Manila that weren't even have nothing to do with the dunes. So when you see dogs and they're aggressive, you have to call animal control. And I have a list of all the important places you can call. I have our office, CHP, code enforcement, animal control, environmental health, all that stuff. And I'll leave these here, but if you don't call, we don't know if there's a problem. And if you call and animal control is available and they can come out, they can address those dogs, they can address the owners of those dogs. If you can get a description of the dog and which encampment it's close to, so that they're not just wandering around through the dunes. And if everybody calls about the green and black and red, you know, big greyhound or something, then we know what dog that is. And I think we can kind of chunk this into chunks as we solve these problems out here. By if we can get the animal thing under control, that seems to be when I talk to people, that's what they're the most frightened about when they go out to the dunes. It's not the people generally, they haven't been approached, you know, they don't like it, but nobody's attacking anyone. And so I think the animal thing is a big deal. And Captain Quinnell is in charge of dispatch and animal control, so he's the guy, you know, that I always go to for questions. But if you don't call, then we don't know, we're not mind readers, and we don't have patrol, we can't just patrol the dunes. I mean, that would take an entire department of 50 people to be patrolling out there. We have to go when there's a call, so until this whole thing comes together, in the meantime, if you have animal problems, you need to please call. You can also, I've got my magic bag here. You can also report online. And I'm gonna leave these too, because some people, they get nervous calling and they're afraid they're gonna say the wrong thing, which is impossible. Our dispatchers are so good. But if you wanna report something online, this tells exactly how to do it. So you can report, and don't do it 3 days later. That's not helpful to us. So if there's a problem, you go out to the dunes and you come back to your house and you go, you know, gonna report that dog, or if you do it on your phone, it's a linear thing. You put your name if you want to, you can report anonymously, but you put what it was the description of the dog, what time did it attack, did you actually see it, or did you just hear it barking? And it goes all the way across, and at the very end, you get a incident number, sorry. It's late. And so you can always refer to that. If you want to call back to find out what happened on that. That's what we all go by numbers. And so it's number 54833. Somebody tell me what happened on that. That way you can find out what happened with that dog. So, and I think if you have any kind of next door or some kind of thread that you all have, if you could say there's a particular dog at this, you know, place, you know, be warned and go around the other way. But so far, I didn't see in any of those 10 reports that anybody was attacked. It was all about barking and feeling nervous. And I feel nervous about dogs like that too. I'm totally into the canines with the law enforcement, but I don't like them loose on me, you know. And they're protecting their owners. So people feel bad for the dogs, but you don't want to be attacked. So use the online reporting if you don't want to call in. If you do want to call in, here's how you do it. And I think that would maybe lessen the stress if we can get these animals under control.
Is there best practice on how to describe where camps are for just normal people who don't know? I mean, I don't even walk out and I live here. I don't walk out there enough to be like, oh yeah, you're the third tree.
Camp number 3.
Yeah,
I mean, you need to number the camps. I'm serious. Number the camps and send that out.
Yeah.
And say, okay, this is camp number 2. So that when they call in, we can give it to this guy and he'll know that this or animal control. I think you need to identify just some encampment doesn't do it. But if you have a specific place, I agree with you.
Yeah, right, I mean, realistically, if you can provide at least like a description of the tent, or what side of the trail it's off of, or is it closer to the ocean, or is it closer to this side? Like, just give us a general area and something to look for, get us in there, then we can go there.
I'll try to spread the word because I work here, so I get a lot of, not so much complaints of people walking through, oh, I felt nervous walking through there, I saw some dogs. I wouldn't even know how to say, like, oh, describe her, for just.
And they ask you too, this.
Right, and if there's any, or even some kind of a.
Most phones, like if you have a smartphone, photos are typically geotagged, so like if you just, you don't have to take a picture of the thing, even if you take a picture of the ground, like if you're uncomfortable. And then you can just look at the information on your phone and you maybe won't give you, like, then you can like be more specific.
It's
And
an area.
you can like, yeah.
But what she's saying, people come into her office and say there were dogs, so that's already, they've passed that point.
Right.
But that's also.
But I can kind of pass on that information, oh, hey, next time, because there's people who come here a lot, just come. through.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Yes.
Just
That's
for,
helpful.
you know, we are in public comment right now, so make sure that we take orderly, comments and that everybody gets their opportunity to speak. So, and I do appreciate your comments. And
Can I
thank you,
answer your
Ginger.
question?
So let's just do one more and then we
Not a
can move
question,
on.
but
If, you know, with the location, Google Maps or Apple Maps, if you drop a pin where you're there, it'll pull up coordinates, and I use that a lot for work, so something to keep in mind. too.
Okay, well, maybe you guys could share that information with everybody. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you. Anyone from the third row like to speak at this time? I thought your hand was raised, but where do you like? Go from your right up here, it's up to you.
Well, anyway, thank you all for considering this tonight. Thank you, Supervisor Winston, for pulling this together. You know, it hasn't just been the last few years, you know, we had another murder, you know, back in 2014. And I was there when the SWAT team came, you know, so it's pretty dramatic. And so this is really a comprehensive endeavor that we're going after. And thank you for law enforcement for being here. In another role I work on, you know, this is a problem everywhere. And so we kind of develop some guidelines as we start to think about trails, and I think some of that can be applicable. Building relationships, number one. And I've also heard that, and I imagine this happens with your NIST team, that if we can do more outreach, and I don't know if there's anything Connie, that community can do to be trained to build those relationships, so law enforcement isn't the first pass at that, because so many folks have had, you know, have negative feelings about law enforcement that we have more luck building relationships in other ways. And so I think law enforcement is a definite important part of this, but I want to think kind of comprehensively about that. I think also I'm on board of Friends of the Dunes, so the neighboring property, but I will say Friends of the Dunes has sought out, you know, support and funding to have ongoing patrols. And long term, we're talking about dealing with this in the shorter term, but long term, I think the district needs to look hard and long at is the district up for managing this property and what that entails and what that means. And if not, you know, later you need to think about that, because once you do clear them out, you need to have some kind of ongoing presence, and having, you know, activities and hikes and positive activities. That's another piece of it once, you know, things get kind of cleared. I also think that as Danielle was mentioning, there's a lot of legal considerations here, and perhaps the district needs to put pressure on the county for some of these. There's large federal funding for resolving encampments, and you know, we need to be a part of an even broader community. And years ago, it was brought up. I better watch my 3 minutes. Just yell at me if I done.
We'll do that.
Okay, good. It was brought up, you know, do we as a 30 second, want to play a part of this in having, you know, there were ideas about tiny house communities over the park. You know, I mean, what role do we have in the longer term solutions? So I really, you know, commend everyone for tackling this, and I think it's got to come at it from lots of different angles. And I'm really supportive of that, and anything that we can do to help, and the partners at Friends of Dunes help as well. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, next speaker.
I feel rude with my back right at you guys. I'll stand over here. Okay, right behind Mike. Hi, my name is Jennifer Savage. Just echoing thank you to everybody who's been part of this. I've been really advocating to have a community conversation for a long time now. Like most people here, I don't have a simple answer because there are no simple answers, but it's really bothered me that it hasn't been talked about in this kind of public forum. So I'm just really grateful that this is happening. So thank you to everyone, and thanks to the sheriff for coming out and you know, dealing with the fact that there is somebody was apparently, you know, or was, I don't know where the person was killed, but the whole situation. So, not, just awful in so many ways. And, you know, my day job is, I'm a professional environmental advocate, which is a pretty sweet gig. And, you know, I have so much compassion for people. I have, you know, people very close to me have had mental health issues, addiction issues. I've seen people go from being functioning to being without a home. I know it can happen to anyone, and I really want to come from a place of compassion. I also am a deep advocate for the Coastal Act and the right of people to have safe, equitable coastal access and to protect the environment that we live in. That is like, this is all environmentally sensitive habitat, and it's not just a matter of like people like sort of gently making homes, right, out of desperation. It's like there's real damage going on. There's a real impact to like everyone who lives here who doesn't get to use the dunes, and to all the other people who come to Manila and have a right to feel safe and have a right to be out there. And, you know, what do you do when these rights and these rights are in conflict? I don't know. I'm glad there's smarter, experienced people in the room who are working on this, but that's what I'm trying to get to. And I'm really glad Carol brought up the issue of long-term land management, because in addition to supporting the resolution tonight, I would really like the Community Services District to explore the possibility of land transfer, because a lot has been made that about a lack of resources to manage the land. 100% understandable. Like, this is water and sewer, right? That is like the purview here, and it's a huge issue. And there's, you know, there's the Wiyot tribes working on land back. There's BLM that has a lot of properties already that they manage. I mean, there are agencies that have money, have capacity, and so I think in addition to this immediate problem, looking at the long-term solution of perhaps transferring the land to an agency or a tribe that can better steward it with their resources and capacity is something we should examine. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Go ahead, next speaker. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ivor Iverson. I live at the very south end at the final trail heading into into the Manila. I was a friend of Pete's, the decedent. I'm mourning him. And I don't think that anyone quite understands how important he was to that community of people. He was the go-to guy. He was sort of a frustrated engineer, I think, and he built beautiful, amazing things, and he moderated some of the more extreme behaviors out there. I called him the mayor. I always said, "Hey, Mr. Mayor," when he'd come by in his fight. And you're gonna have to put that into your plan, that there's gonna be some really stupid stuff happening out there because he's gone. And I just want to say that's important. One of his bad habits, however, that being said, was he was very fond of slashing and burning the sides of trails. So you can see lots of trails out there where somebody whacked off branches of trees, and then to keep it from growing back, they put accelerant on it and lit it on fire. And I chewed him out many times. As far as I know, a fire only got away from him once, and that was last summer, was it? Forget. Anyway, there's gonna be a fire problem when these other people who don't check which is blowing and so forth. I mean, there's a lot of practical knowledge we lost in step, and just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to comment on this item? If not, I'm going to go over to our attendees in Zoom. I see there's one hand raised in the Zoom room. Jenny, if you'd like to unmute yourself and go ahead with your comments.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Hi, so this is Jenny Wilhelm, and I'm also sitting here with Judy Cunningham, and Durwood Cunningham is here as well. We're both property owners here in the community and our neighbors. And first off, yay, we're totally in support of the resolution.
Absolutely.
Both of our properties, and it's also, I actually live on my father's property, Robert Wilhelm, who he is in the Zoom too, are, up against the dunes. And so, I've had multiple trespassers in the last 13 years coming from the encampments, definitely with an increase post the Devil's Playground shutting down, which brings me to my next question, I guess probably to the sheriff's office, but like when they shut Devil's Playground down, the homeless situation out here, because I'm a regular person who goes out to the beach and I do continue to do that. However, my dad went ahead and bought us a protective dog. So I walk with my dog that barks at anybody that is freaky. So I can continue walking out to the beach, but I do, pardon my French, but I call bullshit on that. I've lived out here on and off for 48 years. And as a kid, I was totally safe running around in those dunes. And there was nobody out there. In the last 4 years, I've come across a guy with, he had a rifle with a scope. He was obviously homeless and not totally of the right mind. Another day, I came across a guy carrying a hatchet. Another day, I came across a guy with a baseball bat. I do continue to walk out there, and I know some of my female neighbors, I also live on Peninsula Drive, who no longer feel safe walking out there. I refuse to quit walking out there, but I no longer walk in the places where I know homeless encampments are at, due to my father and daughter one time coming across a homeless encampment where they were practicing throwing their hatchet, and I'd say bullshit. And then people are concerned, and we all have a right to our concerns, but I say bullshit on, you got 30 days notice. That's what a landlord gives somebody. So be grateful you got 30 days notice for an illegal encampment. And what was Devil's Playground's plan? Because a bunch of those folks came out here. I can't prove that, but I watched it go down. So, what else? Let's see. I love the lady who said we ought land. That's a great idea. Give it back to the Weots. This is their land. Let's see. What else? Yeah, I'm totally in support. It's an ongoing problem out here. I go to sleep. I live up against the dunes multiple nights. I hear, not every night, but like I'd say every couple of months, there's people screaming out there, and I don't know if it's homeless or other random people. I can't say, right? But I feel like my daughter and I moved into our home 13 years ago, although my family's owned it for over 50 years. And
Never been.
when we first started going out to the beach,
Your 3 minutes have ended.
have been up. Okay, that's okay. Great. That's okay. I said enough. I said enough, but
I
thank
do really
you
appreciate your comments.
for listening, and thank you for everybody who's in there. Yay, good job.
Thank you very much. If there's anybody else on Zoom that would like to make a comment, please raise your hand.
I have a question,
Okay,
so, well, I'll wait for.
well, I don't see anybody else on Zoom, so
Okay.
now would be questions or comments that I'm gonna close the public comment.
Still have the notices, the first, what I heard is. We wanna take some legal action to making the law more concrete for the property, for the dunes. To then give notices to the people camping there, to the homeless people. And then moving forward with that more legal action to vacate them from the dunes. Or what I know, like the time frame was about 6 months, but I know housing is really challenging. So, I was wondering about, like, are you guys going to have a separate meeting to do more additional planning and collaborating? And creating that plan and the steps that will be taken?
Sure.
Yeah.
Did you have any other questions or comments? So then I'm gonna close public comment and we'll kind of get into the deliberation.
I just wanted to make sure that I understood like what was going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in the deliberation portion of the meeting, we'll definitely talk about, we can talk more specifics about what the near term process will be and what follow-up will be in terms of the district. And I think in terms of the county, frankly, because this is a larger conversation than just Manila and just our dunes that I think needs to break out of this room into a greater county conversation. So I'll preview my comments there. And, but we do have one more public comment, on Zoom. And
Actually, it's gonna be Lorna, then Miriam, and then Judy Cunningham.
Okay,
I can't
so we
figure
have
out how to
three.
raise their hands.
Okay, great. Well, we have 3 more comments on Zoom, so we're going to go ahead. And Alicia, would you mind just announcing their name and letting everyone unmute? I can't quite see them all from here. Thank you.
I think Lorna's ready.
Okay, great.
Yes, my name is Lorna Bryant. Thank you for having us all. Should have come to meetings earlier since I've been a resident of this community and on Peninsula Drive for the last 3.5 years now, I believe. But I want to, as a single woman living on the dune side, and with an open yard, I have felt leery from time to time. I guess coming from Los Angeles, I've always, even though this is a safe place, I know some people don't have great intentions. So I'm always cautious. So I want to add that not just the safety in the dunes, but the traffic on the street, up and down the street during the day and the evening time as well. So it's not just in the dunes, it's in the community. I also work at the school in the middle of the block, and I am always concerned for our children there. And I say our children because they are our children. And if I see someone that doesn't look like they're part of the school or the community at school hours, I say something. So again, I'm just going to reiterate, it's not just the dunes, it's within the community. So when this resolution is passed, in addition to finding some sort of resolution, also consider patrolling the neighborhood or the street on a more frequent basis as well. And thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next speaker.
Go ahead, Judy.
Hold on.
I'm Judy Cunningham. My husband is Durwood Cunningham. We've lived on Tide Road for 50 years. I read the resolution. I read it more than once. And item 4 on there refers to ordinance number 2019.1 about all the prohibitations on all of those items. My past comments have been about the fires because we all know out here, home insurance is an issue because of the trees back here. But it sounds like those items on the ordinance 2019.1 are being addressed. I was very happy to hear from the representative from the Sheriff's Department. I also hope that Mike Wilson is serious about staying involved and keeping us updated on the county's efforts to remove these people. I don't mean them any harm, but they need to be moved out from behind my home. So thank you. Those are my comments. Thank you.
And we have one more from my
Thank you very much. And then next speaker.
Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, is this me?
Yes.
Great. I apologize. I tuned in about 15 minutes late because I had company. Can someone read the resolution? And I do agree with many of the speakers, especially, Jenny Wilhelm and Jen Savage, about the need to do something. And I know it's going to have to take a plan to organize the sheriff's department, the district, and the homeless services that are available. And hopefully those 3 or 4 organizations can get together and move people humanely off of these dunes. But could that resolution be read for someone who did not hear it at the beginning if it was read?
Does that conclude your comments?
Well, if I'd like to reserve, if I hear the resolution, then I could comment on it, but I've only heard it alluded to.
Sure, so to respond to that, the resolutions in the packet for this evening, we have not read the resolution yet, nor has the board deliberated on the resolution. So I would encourage, so we'll do that.
It's on the website.
Yeah, so we're gonna go through it tonight and then and see if, you know, what changes might be made, and then we can make it available on our website and send it to you directly. And we can always, outside of this meeting, take additional comments from you.
All right, and again, I remember we cleared out several campsites. It must have been 15 or 20 years ago. I went down there with my pickup truck and a trailer and cleaned out some. And it's whatever gets done, it has to be ongoing. It's almost like we need a ranger that roams through the dunes and to make sure that new encampments don't arrive. And there has to be some kind of grant or find some money either with the county or the district, but the county should be helping us with this. We're a small district, so that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Zoom, who would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand or type in the chat. Now is the time. Seeing none, I will close the public comment and bring it back to the board for discussion and deliberation. Or for discussion and I guess deliberation on the resolution. And I'd like to start with thank you to everybody for your public comments. They're very informative. I think we got a lot of information here. And so I really do appreciate that. Was there any follow-up questions for the county based on any of the public comments that was heard? That came to mind?
I guess I had a question on the sort of the process. I've heard similar situations up in McKinleyville where they had to have someone go out and give notice to each encampment for 3 days in a row, and then that, or I don't know, however much time they had, and then the police would then go out there and move those encampments along. I guess kind of, you know, how does that process work when we're incorporating other agencies before we get to the point of supervision, or do we start there and then incorporate the other things to hopefully not need to get to it?
Right, so we don't do an eviction, right? Because they're not tenants, they're breaking the law, they're trespassing. But what we try to do, and the reason why we make the timeline longer, is so we can have those partnerships with the other county agencies and try to, again, avoid any type of law enforcement interaction. That's what makes that timeline longer. I'm not sure why the 3 days. As was mentioned, the Boise decision also guides us and how we do this to make sure that we're not infringing upon the House of People's rights. We want to make sure that we offer as many services to them as possible. We want to give them the options and have them make the decision on what they want to do. It takes a little bit longer. It's a little bit more time, intensive for us as far as documentation goes and ensuring that we're adhering to everything and that their rights are protected. But in the long run, like I said, we've been really successful doing it that way, in that we get voluntary compliance 99% of the time. So again, I kind of gave a real vague, broad timeline because I don't know what everybody's schedules are like. I don't know the availability of everyone. And we don't know what other emergencies might pop off, which will pull us away from this and have us doing other things. I wish I could give you a more concrete timeline, but I can't.
I had a question for the sheriff's office also. It does seem like most people, myself included, would like to see a larger law enforcement presence in Manila. I mean, I certainly would like to see a larger highway patrol presence with roadways and things like that, but sheriff would be excellent. It does feel like, we don't have our own police department, and so even if I call the police out here, it's an argument. I've literally had them saying, no, that's the sheriff's jurisdiction, and the sheriff, no, that's highway patrol, and then it was like 12 hours later before someone showed up. So even when you want the law enforcement out here, it's sometimes challenging. I'm curious what the most effective way to make sure that we can have an increased law enforcement, and what is even viable to expect in that regard. I know you guys are spread thin. Is making phone, the more calls you guys get, does that trigger some sort of algorithm that says deploy more law enforcement to this area, if you're getting lots of community members calling in, or how does that work?
100%. We're 100% call generating. The more calls we get, the more resources I can devote to that area. And again, that should never happen. Before I leave, I'll leave a stack of my business cards here. If you ever get this back and forth, you'll have my direct cell phone line. You just call me, and I'll take care of it. That's unacceptable. That should never happen. We should play that game with the community. That should be my supervisors dealing with CHP supervisors, and they can find out who's going to handle the call. Bottom line is if somebody calls for law enforcement services, we should be responding and figuring out from there.
I have a question. Are you?
I guess my very last question is just, I didn't get really much of an update on what even happened out there. I mean, there was a, foul play, deceased person at a mechanic, but I don't know if I missed a report or anything. Is there any more information on suspects?
Yeah, we put out another press release today.
Oh, okay.
It is a homicide, and the decedent was shot. At this point, we do have a person of interest. We're in the process of locating them. There is no indication that there's any type of threat to the community at this point.
When it, or suspect when it happened.
We haven't established the exact timeline yet. We have, again, a kind of a general timeline, but I'm not at liberty to give it out. Just
Okay. I think, well, I have a question, and I'm not sure it's with any of the agencies that are represented here tonight, but I've heard a lot of people in the environmental steward role, and Carol's work that she's done. Is there anyone who can talk a little bit, and I don't know if this is appropriate, but talk about the Dunes Cooperative Management Group and what that looks like when they meet, any kind of oversight or interest they would have in like an ongoing monthly coordination that would support this resolution? I hate to put either of you on the spot, Jennifer.
I don't know that, as you feel comfortable, I don't know, we need to answer that tonight. I think that's a part of the resolution, is encouraging ongoing coordination meetings. And I think that, and then I'll give you an opportunity to say something. But I think that in terms of this resolution, like getting out there, this is the direction that we're providing, and then building on that direction and bringing it back to these meetings and having the ongoing communication. Okay, because we're not going to solve all the problems or know all the details tonight. And so, I don't want to give the false idea that we are and we got it all figured out today. So even including the process and how this is actually going to move forward. And so I just think this is the start of the conversation with more details to come on it. And I think what ongoing communication looks like with the neighboring property owners, and in terms of the ecological management for the health, you will be a part of that kind of problem solving in the next coming months. Yeah,
I'll just
the
say
environment doesn't look at the parcel
Yeah.
line. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm interested in learning more about that group. So if either would like to contact me, that would be great. And
I think Chris had a comment.
Go ahead, no.
Okay.
Okay. The second kind of comment is just looking at the MCSD support. Even with limited resources, there is at this point obligations that we have. And I feel like taking a good look at some of the resources and identifying where we can best utilize staff especially, you know, in my mind, we have a lot of projects that are coming on that, you know, whether we're outsourcing that work means we have, you know, staff that are free to kind of work more closely with the supporting agencies. I also feel like it's going to be very important for us to revisit the MOU with the Friends, the Montessori School and the Resource Center that we have now, and maybe take a look at a comprehensive budget of the last 2 years to identify how it helped that aspect, that part of the community, or where it can help. I think it's been, you know, definitely focused on the school age children, but we're in a position maybe where we need to reallocate some of that to help the different community members. Let's see. The only word I think I would add maybe is in the first paragraph of the first encourages, and possibly to add to support the compliant, safe, humane, and respectful removal. I don't know if that would address the legal obligations that we have for some of the things that I learned about in the, you know, in the US Supreme Court decision. So to add compliant
After safe.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the things I'm thinking are beyond the adoption of this resolution, and it's really more like let's get to work once this is.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. And I would just ask if to your comment regarding staff evaluating the resources to develop and implement a management strategy for the Dunes Recreation Area, and you know, perhaps take a look at the MOU. That could be perhaps part of the resolution. Item is directing the staff, so we have the 2 encourage items, and we could add direct the staff to do that and report back essentially. Would that work for you?
Yeah, okay. I think under that limited
resources. Okay, great. Sounds good. Any other board members have any items specific to the resolution you'd like to add? Anything there?
There's, I think, a typo.
Okay.
In the very last bullet point. Encourages ongoing monthly coordinated meetings between from the county of Humboldt. I'm not sure that it just must be between the county of Humboldt and primary forces. You just the from, I'd say removed.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, really awesome to have so many community members at our meeting. And I would say my biggest takeaway from all this, aside from obviously supporting this resolution, is encouraging people to participate, because you can come to these meetings and the very first thing we always do is public comment. So you can show up and you can say, if you have something that's bothering you, you can say it and then you can leave. You don't have to sit here for 3 hours. And I think that all agencies, it's kind of like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. We got people coming in here bugging us, and I think that goes to my next point, which is, please, like Ginger was saying, call animal control, call the sheriffs. I actually did call animal control. I was one of the 10 in the last 6 months. And I haven't had that dog run up on me since then. So, and the animal control did call me back. It was the next day, and the guy he asked me in detailed directions. So there is some responsiveness. So yes, be the squeaky wheel. Thank you.
Thank you. Overall, you know, I'd like to say I agree with many of you that are in this room, and again, appreciate you coming out and sharing with us. I am a single woman that walks her dog, and actually I don't walk my dog in this community very frequently because of a lot of the concerns that were addressed. And you know, also share the concerns regarding the environmental degradation and people being treated humanely. And so I do think that it is a very complicated issue that deserves like I said before, more conversation than this room right here, and on a greater scale and throughout the community, because it really isn't just the Manila Dunes that experience this. I think that you know, throughout the community, there's a lot of similar people thinking the same way, and it would be great to have an open conversation about it. Kind of in the, you know, we all know it's happening, but are we all talking about it? And so I think it's good to have it out there, you know, in the same way that I think increased use of the dunes really helps to keep them safer when more people are out there using them. And so But we need to get to a place where people feel safe getting out there and using them to like keep our community safe and people using the dunes recreationally. So, you know, with that, like I said, I think this is really the first step in an ongoing conversation. I think you know, we need to take the information that we heard today and provide some encouragement to our community partners to help us work on this. And I think, you know, work with the district to talk about the short and the long term management of the properties and bring back additional information as you would sort through the details and make a more concrete plan to have an ongoing communication with the community. So with that, if anyone wants to make a motion,
Through the chair.
Yes.
Just to close this out, 'cause I'm so thankful. I want to first thank you for doing such a wonderful job chairing this meeting. I want to point out that it's not easy to go through Robert's Rules of Order and the Brown Act and actually have an actual conversation. You have to be a little bit squishy, and you did is great, because oftentimes it's so still did hard to do. I just want to say, I am very committed to working, having the county work with the district to deal with this. I just want to, I was on the board of Friends of the Dunes 20 years ago when we were actually we were meeting in the bathroom over here. So I've been in this space for a long time and just very, very committed. And I want to also thank the board, because this isn't easy. This is as we were talking about, these are very conflicting values that we have to deal with. It's none of those decisions are going to make everybody happy all the time, but we're just in those spaces that are just very, very hard, and just thankful that you guys took time this month to help us get through this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. And yeah, to add to that too, I think, you know, with the Department of Fish and Game, being a neighboring property owner, I'd like to, you know, see us participate and coordinate with them in these efforts as well. So regarding the resolution, and I would add, or perhaps a motion to approve the resolution with the additional resolution item number 3 regarding the staff direction, adding the word compliant to the first item and removal of the word from the second item as the motion. And I'll throw that out there.
Are you making a motion now?
I don't, but I could, sure. I'm making a motion to do that.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much. And with that, you're all welcome to stay. We actually have a couple more items on our agenda and still have more time.
And you're also allowed to come to meetings to say nice things about.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, feel free to leave. Completely understand.
Yeah.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank
Oh, yeah.
How are you?
I'm always there. I work out in an office now. Well, you can come sit next to me on my desk.
Just desk?
Pretty much. I know, right? Yeah, nice to meet you. Sergeant Gumpy, grabbing my his business cards. He's gonna give you your point of contact.
Sunday through Wednesday.
What's that? Not anymore. No, I mean, 10 years he's been up. I think you're right.
I was gonna try to get it.
Monica works for us. She's vouched for you.
Thank you for your.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
I've already put it in the state, we've also left.
We were not noticing it correctly.
Yeah, this is perfect opportunity for us to.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you very much for doing.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank
I had a
you.
feeling this letter might be a little.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
How about the arsenic in the water? Oh, kidding.
All right,
Yeah.
well.
Don't talk about the arsenic.
Yep, still in the meeting, so thank you. And we're gonna move on in the agenda unless you want to add something.
I did want to add, I briefly mentioned to Jen that I've had a half a dozen meetings with Michelle Vassell and State Coastal Conservancy about the WEOP tribe as far as the land transfer goes for our 150 acres of NDRA of certain parcels that are particularly difficult for us to manage, and that staff is capable and willing to get out and clean out the camps, and we'll work closely with them to do that as fast as we can. It's just getting in there, there's people already there with their dog, which makes it quite problematic for us, so.
Yeah, I think we'll capture that on upcoming agenda items to be more specific about. Thank you. I'm going to move to the consent calendar. The consent calendar, item number 5. These are items that are routine and in nature and can be approved with one vote. And so what I'll do is I will read off each item on the consent calendar. If you would like it pulled for a separate public hearing, please raise your hand. And if not, we can again may be able to approve them in one vote. Consent calendar item 5A, draft minutes of December 19th, 2023. Does anyone on the board or anyone in the public like this pulled to a separate public hearing? Seeing no one in the room and no one on Zoom, draft minutes can stay on the consent calendar. And also the item 5B on the consent calendar is received disbursements, December 20th to the current of 2023 to the current date. Is there anyone here who would like to pull this item off of the consent agenda?
No.
Okay, great, thank you. So then I think we'll be looking for discussion or a motion for the consent calendar on approving the draft minutes.
And motion we approve the draft minutes on the consent.
I'll second that.
Great, thank you. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries 4-0. Consent calendar item B, 5B, received disbursements was pulled from do a public hearing. So Danielle, if you'd like to go ahead and just ask first your questions.
Okay,
Yeah, we'll see. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just have 3 questions. So, and this is just discrepancies in the documentation that you gave me. The first one is the Keenan for $4,475. In the documentation, there was 2 additional invoices. One was for $4,448.66, and the other had a blank in the total amount. So I'm just kind of curious why those were in the proof for this round of disbursements.
In the scans that I sent.
There should have been, the blank one is the packing slip.
Okay.
And there should have been one for like $26.
There was the amount that was,
Like
cut,
a separate one.
and a separate one for $4,448.66.
There were 2 invoices. One was 4,000 something and another one was 26.
So I'm just curious. So, okay, so
And
we
the
just got
blank one
the,
is the packing slip.
and the 4,475 is the total. of the
Total between
second.
the 26 and the 4,000 and
Okay,
something.
I just didn't have that one, so.
Okay.
And then there's a couple that are voids in here. One of those was Badger Meters invoice, which was in
They're
the,
reprinted because we have a new copier and it likes to switch the orientation when I put the checks.
so that $8.65 thing. is paid,
We're
right?
fighting
I know it's such a
currently,
small
yes.
amount, I just, okay. And then the very first scan was a payroll deduction for 2019 and 32 cents, but it doesn't match any of the debits on here. And so
Where's
I'm-
that one?
It's the very first scan in the invoices that were sent to me, and the total is a withdrawal of $2,819.32, but it just doesn't, there's no payroll.
It's EFTPS, which is payroll taxes.
Okay, so there's a discrepancy there, $900 or something, it sounds like then. Or we would still owe that amount if,
No, it comes out, it's payroll taxes, you deduct it every payroll, and then I send it to the government once a month.
so that.
There's no
Well, it's not listed
scan.
on here.
Yeah,
That's what you
and we could follow up later, I suppose, but I'm just curious, the amount that was cut is far, $1,000 less
What do
than.
you,
Oh, yeah, the pay, these are direct deposits and they won't jive with
Oh.
a separate electronic.
Okay, I guess it's the first time I've gotten a payroll invoice
Okay.
to review. So
Yeah,
I
it'd be
just,
separate from that, but we can,
okay, go over that
Yeah.
later. Okay.
oh, no, she's talking about SDRMA.
I don't
Because
think
now,
so.
yeah, the invoice that I sent, it's now being done manually through the wire transfer, no. Cause that's what I included the invoice when I did the wire transfer.
It's a ACH payment tracking from
Yes.
Coast Central for
Mhm.
$2,819.
That's medical benefits.
Okay. So
Cause
those
now
are.
remember there was the issue with, they weren't auto paying,
Mhm.
and now I send it from our bank.
Okay,
That's the wire transfer.
so that won't ever show up on here because it's a wire transfer? Is that, I just don't see it.
It's a written, handwritten wire, I probably hadn't entered it yet that day when we did this printout.
but we'll look into that and see if ACHs are becoming opaque to the board, which would
Okay.
be kosher, and we'll make sure to change the way we report that, if that's the case.
Okay, I know it's tedious, I just.
Oh, no
thank
worries.
you.
Of course.
That's my question.
Any additional questions or comments, for Chris on the disbursements?
What was the olives for?
Al's was the new roof.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Is there any public comments on the receiving disbursements item? I'd like to open it for public comments since we pulled it through hearing. Please raise your hands if you'd like to speak. Seeing none, I will close public comment, bring it back to the board for a further discussion or motion.
Make a motion, everyone's okay to approve 5B on the consent calendar?
I'll take it.
Okay, great, we have a motion and a second, all those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed say no. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Danielle, for your questions. Agenda item number 6, board discussion items. Are there any committee member updates?
No, redact didn't meet because the fourth Monday was Christmas.
Oh, okay.
Nothing to report there.
PCC did meet this month.
Okay, great. And the general manager's report, please.
Thank you guys for trudging through this last minute sausage stuff at the end of this huge meeting so that I can do a little bit of light lifting. I don't really have much to add outside of my report, other than the FPPC advice did come through. The guy called me and said, we're not going to give you advice. So I don't have advice, and it's basically just some procedural items. So if the board does need to do any change order issues with the water grant, which I don't think will need action on, I just leave the room. So that's the long and short of that part. We did have a kind of a significant water leak on Christmas Eve. That was a real big bummer for those people on Park Street, and they were really cool. Everybody came out and we said, we'll come back tomorrow as the best we can do. And they came back around noon on Christmas, but they were super nice and they had a Christmas Eve without water. It was really impressive how kind they were to us. So unless you have any specific questions about my report.
I just wanted to. You're talking the all your report? Yeah. I just wanted to, because Brian's here, Chris had found the original blueprints. I don't know if you're talking about, because the last I spoke with Brian, we were talking about getting an engineer, but Chris had found the original blueprints for this structure. So it sounds like we can jump straight to contractors, which is kind of cool. Yeah.
We had in the past had a structural engineer look at the dancing posts, what could be done, and like why rethink the wheel. This is a DSA architect who designed these posts, and if we just get a general contractor who can replace them or give us the quotes, and we'll bring that back to the board, have that work done, and just replace them as they were originally designed, and not get into a big thing about it. So that's something that'll come back.
So if I heard it correctly, it sounds like with the FPPC and the grant and the item of their the discussion on the perhaps amending the grant that you would leave the room.
Correct.
And then in terms of any discussions with the district, you need a representative other than you to have those discussions outside of the meetings, or?
Well, it is, the procedure was that I say I live within 500 feet of the project, and this, it's called segmentation. The rest of the project is basically the general public exception because it affects everybody. It affects me disproportionately just when it comes to Shell Drive. So if there's anything needed that's segmented action, because the project is already approved and rolling and funded and everything's basically going. If the board needed to act on anything, that we would segment that particular part of the project out for your action. I would just leave the room, and I think Brett can handle any component of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that it would be handled through change orders. The board's already approved, like the budget change orders subject to grant funding. So there would be a process through the grant. They need to approve change orders as well. But I mean, I think that process wise, I could get information from the district, which is public information on where infrastructure lies, and then I can go back to my other water distribution engineers to figure out a solution. And then that should be good. And then so long as we're within budget of the grant, I wouldn't foresee the general manager having to comment specifically on, you know, exactly what that is. But yeah, I would call the board.
Okay.
So it does sound like that there is a plan maybe then to consider changing the approved project. And I'm just wondering, that came as a comment from a public member, but is it, I guess, I'm curious why that wasn't done, like thought of originally, or where, is it just because like an issue was brought to you that?
Well, I'd like to, if you're okay with it, because we have not agendized this item because we were waiting for this decision. So now we have confirmation of that. And so I think for the February meeting to put it on the agenda to allow the public members that did submit their letter to come, and we can have that discussion, like what's the history, why wasn't it included before, and just all that background information.
Yeah, and all the.
Because we haven't really dove into it yet, kind of sorting.
And I can send you my package of information too, attorney at WDC, it explains the whole history of it. So.
Yeah, but yeah, have anything would be good for the public. I know the other board members had
Yeah.
questions, so we've been kind of keeping it at bay, so I don't want to get into the weeds of it right now as a not agendized item, if that kind of works for you. Great, thank you.
Is it appropriate to add just a little clarification on the drainage grant, or maybe we can just chat about it tomorrow? We have a meeting separate or on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a meeting tomorrow about planting at the park related to the coastal development permit. It doesn't require any action, but just informational. There is some planting or mitigation that will happen at the park. We're gonna make that conform and be consistent with kind of that overall park plan, but just kind of, we can bring that forward at a later date, what that design will be, but there's
Some pending funds.
About a third of an acre of planting that we need to do there. And we thought we could dovetail that with the overall park plan.
Yeah, okay, that sounds great. Yeah, we'll bring that. Well, yeah, it sounds like we'll some more details and definitely review it and hear at a future meeting. Great, thank you. Oh, that sounds good. Anything else from the general manager of the board on the report? And then I think, and then moving to future agenda items, I think perhaps how about at least committing to a future agenda item to be more specific about how we are moving forward in the short and long term with the discussions that were here tonight. So without maybe feeling like we need to figure it out this second and work on it within the next month and come bring in some draft ideas back for the next meeting, if that sounds good.
Yes.
Okay, great. And I did not see agenda item number 7. I did not see any incoming communications. So unless there are any other questions for Chris or from the board, I'd like to adjourn the meeting at 8:03 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.